or what numbers can you think of were for some reason more difficult than others? Like I remember the gorilla was the hardest for me because there was no air. Physically there was no air, and I couldn't see. I could, when I had to walk down stage, I got a little scared, so I figured out that I could open the mouth and I could see through the mouth. I could see the floor so I wouldn't fall and crush the people in the, sitting ringside. But I remember that was really scary. Can you think of any or shows that were just really hard physically?
In Redhead, we did a ballet that was about a half hour long.
Yeah.
And it went on and on and on. And just to get through with breath was difficult. They must have had it bad because they did it from the beginning. You did it from the beginning.
There were 3 separate costume changes, and I think each one of them was 3 counts of 8. And you had to line up in the wing in the way that you were going back on. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. I mean, it was like crazy, but it was wonderful.
Now the easiest part, I would love to hear some of the moments in rehearsal or on stage that you remember that pop in your mind.
I've got one.
I know you have some. Remember, like I know in Pippin there were many times and many moments because the guys were all actors. They had these incredible roles. I mean, it's not easy to play insanity, Well, I don't know. Come to think of it. But you were going to say, going to remember.
This was in Conquering Hero, and as far as I know, it was the only show that he was ever fired from. And it was very, very, working with him on something new that he was creating for me was the experience of a lifetime. And one day he's working very quietly, meticulously down in the corner, and I'm with my partner, I think it was Margie at the time, and we were talking quietly. And he said, "Bill, what did I say?" And I repeated back what he had been saying down there. And he left me alone. Later, somebody else was talking. He said, "I don't want to hear one more word from anybody." Now, you all remember the inevitable cigarette hanging out of the mouth. It's getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And of course, he burned himself. And he said, "You weren't going to say anything, were you?" And we all went. He laughed so much. And I think the thing I loved about him most was that he laughed at himself, too. And it was wonderful to be around somebody like that.
You had mentioned, Gene, on the phone talking about in Pippin. I mentioned that because the 3 of you guys here were in that. The fact that there was so much to do in each moment that you felt like it was. Tell them what you told me.
It was very interesting. Pippin, when he was working with us in Pippin, we worked for about 4 weeks, not really knowing what we were doing. We didn't realize that at the end of this show, we were going to ask someone to set themselves on fire and kill themselves so that we could orgasm. That was the end of that show. But we didn't know anything about any of this. We just kept doing the steps. And the amazing thing about Pippin was we were a group of players, and our direction was, I remember what he told us for the opening number. He said, "In Magic to Do, I want you to make love to the audience. I just want you to make love to the audience and try to get them to come on stage with you." In Chicago, in All That Jazz, our direction was, I want you to confront the audience with murder in your eyes and dare them to look at you. And that was the direction for the opening number of Chicago. That I can do. But the amazing thing about Bob was that we would, it was never, like, he was an amazing man in that, let me tell a little story about, we were doing Sweet Charity, and Ralph Burns came to the Alvin Theater to write down the orchestrations for the Pompeii Club, which would include the Frug and the scene after the Pompeii Club and the transition out of it into Vittorio's apartment. And in that we had a lot of what we call Fosse freezes that we had to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, and then they talk for a while, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and da, 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 da. And on this day, Gwen was not feeling very well, as she was very often in Sweet Charity not feeling very well. And so she was all day, and Bobby was getting, you know, you could see the cigarettes were getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and he was just getting more and more and more. And we were having a good time on stage, too. And we had working in Sweet Charity one of the funniest women that has ever lived, a woman named Ruth Buzzy. And so she was standing over in the wings, and we're on the stage, and we're doing our thing, and we're all frozen, and we're all looking at her, and she's showing us how to masturbate a dinosaur. Show business, kids. And it was funny. So we all started picking up on it, and we started doing things. And we were not doing what Bob had usually been seeing. The next thing I know is, and I was right in the front, the next thing I know, we're on a 5-minute break, and the stage manager came to me and said, Bob would like to see you in the back of the theater. And I was called to the back of the theater, and I went bouncing back to the back of the theater. And he walked up and he said, just because I think you're marvelous, and you know I think you're marvelous, does not mean that I won't fire your ass in 1 minute. And I thought, what? Because I had not been doing my regular 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s. I had been making up some good new stuff because we had been on stage for about 2 hours that day. And we were tired. He was tired. He continued to tell me everything he didn't like about me, from the way I combed my hair to the way I looked at myself in the mirror. And I mean, he went down the list telling me everything he did not like about me. Always interjecting in the middle, but you know I think you're marvelous. You know I think you're marvelous. You know that I love you. And he told me, he said, now, I don't know what's happening on this stage today, but you're not going to be the cause of it any longer. You're going to go back and you're going to do your job and you're just going to be there. And I don't want to see you. I went back. And it was really strange because I was really scared. They're all going, hey, wait, baby, say, I said, nothing, it was nothing. It was just a little something. I didn't speak to anybody for days. I mean, I did not, but he changed my life that day. He showed me that all I had to do was give him good attitude, and he would do anything for me. It was all about attitude. If you had a bad attitude, you were out. But if you had a good attitude, he would help you do the steps. He would help you. He didn't care you couldn't do the steps, but don't give him no shit. Mr. Fosse was like that. And the very next number that he did was brass band, and he put me next to Gwen. So I was very lucky. But, you know, he could have fired me that day, but he didn't. So that's my little, I wasn't ever really going to tell that story in public anywhere.
I'm glad you did.
But I know I've done it.
I'm glad you did.
But he changed my life that day. And then later on, a few years later, Pippin changed my life. We'll get into that later.